tell us when we are live. Yes, we are live on Facebook. And good morning and welcome to our first ever In Conversation from Exeter Library morning session. The reason that we are having this morning session is because it may be 9 a.m. here in the UK, but it is 8 o'clock p.m. in Australia, where our lovely guest Allie is this morning. And also it's 30 degrees there to everybody in England who is freezing. So Exeter Library is one of 54 libraries run by the charity Libraries Unlimited across Devon and Torbay. And although these events are free, if you'd like to donate, there will be a donation link in the chat. Also, if you'd like to ask Allie any questions, if you type them in the Exeter chat, then I will ask Allie the questions as they come through. So good morning. Thank you, Allie, for joining us. It's great for you to come all this way virtually and be our first Australian author. So Allie was actually born in the UK, and Shiver, which I have got here, is her first novel. And it's a huge one for a first novel, which we'll come back to that in a second. So Allie was once a freestyle snowboarder and was in the UK top 10 at halfpipe. Is that correct?
Yeah.
She spent many winters in France, Switzerland, Austria and Canada, and she moved to Australia in 2003, and she became a full-time writer in 2018. So hi, Allie. Thank you for joining us today. I guess it's a good evening because you're obviously in. So thank you for coming along. And I really, really love Shiver. It was such a good book. And I know you must be really excited about the amount of sort of press it's getting. And for a debut, it's phenomenal, really.
Yes, I've just been blown away. And yeah, thank you so much for having me. I just want to say I'm a massive fan of my local library. So I'm really excited about doing this talk.
Yeah, it's good. I saw that you wrote some of Shiver in your local library. So did you want to tell us about Shiver for people who don't know about it?
I would love to. So Shiver begins as 5 former friends are invited to an isolated mountaintop reunion in a tiny French ski resort. 10 years earlier, they were snowboarders living and training in the resort for a big snowboard competition until tragedy struck. Now it's the off-season and the resort is nearly deserted. The cable car is running just for them to take them to the glacier reunion venue. As they go up the cable car, there's confusion over who invited them. When they reach the top, the ski lodge there is dark and deserted. An icebreaker game has been laid out for them. The game reveals some of their darkest secrets and suggests that one of them is a killer. But the cable car's no longer running. There's no easy way down. If they want to get off the mountain alive, they have to figure out who to trust and discover what really happened that winter 10 years ago.
Yeah, it's really good. So the characters are so well written, and I was wondering, so the central character, the one who sort of tells the story is Mila
Anderson.
Yeah, and she is sort of, in the beginning, she's in that sort of outer circle, isn't she? She's not in the clique of Saskia and Curtis, and she sort of gets drawn into that, doesn't she, in that sort of that winter. I was interested to know whether the sort of characters were based on people from that sort of time in your life. Sorry, the bin man is coming past.
I can't hear, don't worry.
That's okay.
So Mila, the main female character, I would say she's a lot like me. She is a total tomboy. She just lives for her sports. Only she's a lot more competitive. I really hope I'm not that competitive. So yeah, her voice came really smoothly because it was just, there's so much of me in Mila, and friends have read it and said, yeah, that is just so you. As for the other characters though, I think they're just totally imagined. I wanted a cast of characters that would have as much conflict between them as possible to make an interesting story. So I made a sort of character web, and we've got, for example, two guys that are best friends but also closest rivals. They both like the same girl, and the girl likes one of the guys, but his sister is her greatest rival, you know. So I wanted them torn all through between, you know, their attraction and their friendship, sibling loyalty, and their desire to win. So we never quite know what they're going to do, hopefully.
I really like the beginning when they go up to this sort of deserted resort, and the icebreaker is really clever and actually just throws open so many questions about, you know, what happened before, and you don't really know at that stage what has happened, and the sorts of detail and how you sort of uncover that is really clever. And I really liked how, like you say, she's on, Mila's out on the outskirts and she joins this sort of very sort of popular sort of, you know, they're all sort of high performing, aren't they? And Saskia, well, a lot of the other characters I sort of wasn't sure that I liked them. And I thought that was really good. I like that in a book because I think that's very sort of, that's quite Agatha Christie-esque, because there's quite a lot of, you know, there's quite a lot of people that you think, oh, I'm not sure whether I like you really. And Saskia definitely is one of those characters, isn't she? She's,
some readers have said that she's the one that they love to hate. I was actually quite worried about Mila, if readers would find her like really unlikable, because she's so competitive. But I tried to explain why she's like that.
No, I liked Mila. I think she's got a nice side. I think that Saskia is very sort of, she basically is out for what she can get, whereas I think Mila's got a conscience, hasn't she? Yes, she is competitive, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. But she doesn't sort of trample on everybody to get what she wants, like some people. So was it difficult to write the dual timeline, because you've got like the present where they're back at the deserted resort, and then it sort of goes back to 10 years previously when, you know, the tragedy happened. Was that difficult to keep track of, or did you do them as separate and then merge them?
Yeah, well, it was my first time writing a dual timeline novel. So before I set out writing it, I was absolutely quite nervous about doing it. And I looked at some advice online, and there was some, you know, great books that had been written with dual timelines. So I looked and read what those authors had said about it. And I knew I would have to plan it, because we would have these two timelines alternating, and I wanted to be careful what I revealed when. I wanted to give quite short chapters, so we could switch back and forth quite quickly and it wouldn't, you know, drag the pace. And I wanted to end on cliffhangers in each scene to try to keep the reader gripped and wanting more. So yeah, it ended up not being too bad, because I planned it. I planned it on a giant whiteboard with Post-it notes in two different colours, one colour for each timeline. And I spent a whole month before I started writing, literally just shuffling them about and trying to find the best order. Yeah.
So how did the because obviously you've been a writer for a while now, but you hadn't, this is your debut novel. Did the idea sort of just come to you one day, or is it something that you'd always sort of thought you'd like to do from your sort of snowboarding career?
Well, even back when I was snowboarding, I was trying to write a mountain set novel, a different one. And I wrestled with that one for about 20 years, on and off, with some other different novel attempts in between. I kept coming back to it, mostly because I was just obsessed with that setting. This icy white world at the top of a mountain. It's so different to anywhere else that we ever, you know, experience. And also I wanted to show that, you know, sports world where people live for just going up and going down and jumping off things, and, you know, the adrenaline and the danger. So yeah, I always knew I wanted to set a novel there. But when I finally put that old novel aside for a while, then yeah, the idea for Shiver came really quickly. And it just came so smoothly. Second time round now, when I'm trying to write my next novel, it's not that smooth at all. I think I just got lucky, maybe. Everything just came together.
Yeah, it does. I mean, it reads. It's such a great book. It's really gripping, and like you say, you've got the cliffhanger. So you want to you gallop through it. I gallop. I mean, it's quite a big book, but you gallop through it.
Well,
And I
yeah.
really like the atmosphere. I thought that was how the sort of atmosphere of that snowy world, that sort of snowy, sort of isolated world. And when they sort of things start to happen, the doors weren't that were closed become open, and axes go missing, and all those types of things. Yeah, I thought that was great. Did you enjoy writing the sort of thrilling side of the book?
Yes, yeah, definitely I did. I was just thinking, I read lots of books on writing, and especially thriller writing, and they advise things like the writer should be thinking, what's the worst possible thing that could happen next? So yeah, that was kind of what I was thinking a lot of the way through, and just trying to keep escalating the tension. I also love the idea of the characters being, trapped together, and they're kind of reaching breaking points. And these are their friends, supposedly, but now that they're trapped together, they're sort of thinking, how well do I really know my friends? And can I really trust these people? So, yeah, really creating a sort of chilling atmosphere in this building that's miles away from civilization.
And there's some real shockers. I'm not going to give them away because obviously there's lots of people who haven't read the book, but there is some really sort of shocking reveals, isn't there, as you go through? And I was like, no, no, that can't be it. And it was, yeah, it's really, really compelling. Do you think it was easier to write the sort of when you were obviously writing the sort of snowboarding sort of scenes? That was obviously easier to write because you'd obviously experienced them, and did you use a lot of your own experience to sort of are you like Miller in the sort of her sort of competitiveness, and that she
Well,
doesn't.
she is so much a better snowboarder than me, for sure. She is a lot more fearless than me and way more competitive. And also the level of snowboarding has increased massively. I was snowboarding very much in the early years of freestyle snowboarding, more tthan 20 years ago. So now if you look at what they can do, the women, it's just unbelievable the tricks that they're doing. So that was kind of, imagining Miller does some flips and things
Yeah.
as tricks, and I certainly could not do those things. I watched some YouTube and, X Games and Winter Olympics, and I was trying to, get the vibe from there and take that to some of those snowboarding scenes.
How did you, because you're from the UK, how did you get into snowboarding? Because we don't have a huge amount of snow. We've got a little bit at the moment, but not snowboarding worthy.
Well, I grew up in Lincoln, and my parents were mountaineers. They met in the mountains, and every childhood holiday, we loaded the car with with a tent and camping equipment, and we went to the mountains. Peak District, Lake District, Scotland. We had relatives in Scotland. So yeah, that was my childhood: hiking and walking and climbing. And I think I tried skiing at a pretty early age. I just got put into some cousin's dusty old skis from the attic and set off down some farmers' fields with no lessons or anything. And yeah, I switched to snowboarding probably in my late teens. And yeah, and I was just immediately hooked.
Did you have sort of sponsorship? Did you ever sort of get the sponsorship, or did you have to sort of fund yourself? Or
So I had product sponsors after my third season when I competed in the British Championships. And there was no money in the sport really at the time. It was just such a new sport. I would say almost everybody in it, you'd have to be doing at least some part-time work to fund yourself. I completely funded myself in doing 3 or 4 jobs every summer and saving up, and then training all winter long as much as I could. So
wow.
and I think in my 4th winter I tore knee ligaments. The sponsors dropped me, so then it was back to square one. So I didn't get anywhere near as far as I would have liked to do, but I'm grateful that I'm in one piece because yeah.
So Mila's knee injury was quite reminiscent of your own experience then.
Yes, so much.
Cool. So your writing journey was so you became a full-time writer in 2018, and you were sort of doing magazines and things like that, and then you decided, I guess, 2019 to write Shiver. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that, because that's quite extraordinary as well, and I think people will be quite interested in your sort of
sure. So here in Australia, I was teaching English for about 15 years. And I was always writing on the side as a hobby. I was writing short stories for women's magazines, and I gradually began getting some published. And I never quite had enough time to focus on it. And then I had small children. So I took, a year or two off from writing completely because I was just completely sleep deprived and exhausted. But then when I went back to teaching, I kept having to call in sick when my kids were sick. And I lost 3 teaching jobs from having to call in sick because my kids were sick. And I thought, well, this is not going to work. Soon there won't be any language school that will have me. So I decided to give it a year and really focus on writing and see if I could make, a part-time income from that while I had my young children at home, several days a week. And that gave me the real push that I needed. It was like a now or never. I've got 1 year to make this work. I just put everything that I had into it.
Wow, that's good. And so was it when you finished Shiver and you sent it off, did you have an agent at this point, or were you sort of?
No, I didn't. I finished, I planned it Shiver for a month, and I wrote it in about 6 months. I did some revisions with the help of some writing friends, and then I submitted it to London agents. And quite soon I found agent representation, and my agent took me through a couple more rounds of revisions, and then 2 months later it went to a 10 publisher auction in the UK,
which is amazing. That's so cool. And Headline obviously won the auction and are your publishers now. I've got some questions that are coming through. So one question from Serena. She can't wait to read the book, and she wants to know what sort of authors you read.
So I would say I read maybe 60% thrillers. I'm a massive reader, and there's never enough time to read all the books that I want, but I absolutely love psychological thrillers. And mostly I seem to read female thriller authors. I love Lee Child. And other favorite authors are Claire McIntosh, Ruth Ware, C.L. Taylor, Erica Ferencik, an American writer, Karen Dion, Jane Harper, of course, in Australia. I particularly love dangerous natural settings where, books with a strong sense of place set in the mountains or beaches or forests.
I
also love reading a bit of romance, rom-com. And I think that's worked its way into my writing because Shiver has got a romance subplot.
It does, yes.
I was a bit nervous about the romance subplot.
No, I quite like that because no, it's not that common, and I was sort of thinking, where's this going? Because actually, it's quite uncommon unless someone's going to end up dead at the end of it. But no, actually, I liked that. I liked that twist. Actually, I thought it was, and I liked the characters. I think that's the other thing, isn't it? If you like the characters, when you when there's a sort of a potential romance, if it's quite nice for them to sort of see that through it, if it does happen like that, without giving anything away. Vicky's asked, and you just touched on it briefly earlier, was your next book. So can you tell us anything about that? What are you writing at the moment, and can you give us any spoilers for what's coming next?
Sure. So it's another psychological thriller. So we've got a small group of friends in a sort of isolated place, and it's set here on a remote Australian beach. So we've gone from the snow and the ice to, the heat and the ocean. So I'm about a third of the way through it. I'm massively behind. I've missed one deadline already, mainly because of the COVID lockdown earlier this year. because I'm a single mum now, and I just had my 2 little boys at home all through that lockdown and could not work at all.
No,
So luckily we're so fortunate here now that we're not locked down, and I'm really feeling for all you guys where
we are. We're still in lockdown.
Very hard to work or do anything in that time.
Yeah, it's so tough for people at home, you know, for particularly, you know, for parents who are trying to work a full-time job and teach, and I know that other authors I see a lot on Twitter are in the same boat as you, and it must be, you know, when you're used to having that sort of routine of them going to school and being able to come home and write, it must be so difficult to.
I think particularly for writers and readers, we kind of tend to be introverts. We like our peace and our silence, and that makes it particularly hard.
At least the weather's nice in Australia.
Yeah.
So yours are back at school now, so you can get
we've
back.
Got our long summer holidays, so they actually go back next week, but they've had some vacation care, so I've been fortunate.
Good. So when you're I was going to say, do you have any sort of advice for potential writers? Because obviously you've been in it for the long haul, you know, you've been doing it for quite a long time now. So if there's anybody out there sort of thinking about, you know, I'd like to write my Shiver or similar, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, well, I think I've learned nearly everything I know about writing from reading. I've always been a really massive reader. I try to read books and analyze what I like or don't like about them. Like, why do they work? If it's something I particularly love, I will take it to pieces, make notes, you know, about it. Like, how many scenes? How does each scene end? You know, if there's multiple viewpoints, you know, how many scenes have we got from each character's viewpoint? So I try to sort of see how have they made that, you know, what it is. And I've done a few short writing courses, which I found really helpful. I did some online courses with Curtis Brown Creative.
Oh, yeah.
And some one-day workshops in a few places. My local library did some great workshops and at writing festivals as well. I also found so many great books about writing out there that are available quite cheaply, maybe from the library. So about 2 years ago, after writing 4 attempted novels and getting nowhere, I decided my weakness was probably plot. I was weak with storyline. So I just made it my business to read every book about plot and story I could get my hands on. And it went from being an area that, you know, I was struggling with to an area I was totally fascinated with. So I like books like Into the Woods by John York, John Truby's Anatomy of Story, Robert McKee's book Story. Just the way they analyze stories and see how they work.
So you really went into it sort of you know, theoretical, and then sort of pulled
because I took what I like from it. You know, they all have their theories, and I think take what works for you, because everybody seems to have a different method as a writer.
Is there anything you'd like to write in the future? Do you want to sort of stick to this genre, or would you like to do something different in the future?
So I love thrillers in that, you know, we've got the fast pace and the twists. I particularly love that. But a few books down that I think I'll stick with thrillers for a few books. But I've just got this desire. Eventually, I would love to try a full-blown rom-com or romance, because I really enjoy reading that too. I'm not sure if I would be able to do it. Maybe I would have to kill some people off. I don't know. But
have a few murders or deaths, or and have a romance. I think I must admit I read both. They're probably my 2 favorite genres. So I think that's why I really like Shiver, because it sort of does combine the 2. So
I love the chemistry and the tension we get between characters in a romance. So that's what I tried very much to include in Shiver. I didn't know if it would work in a thriller. I didn't know if I'd be able to get that chemistry, but that's what I really enjoyed trying to do.
I think it definitely worked for me, and I think from reading reviews of other people have because that's the other thing, isn't it? It's really, you must be so excited about how well received it's been,
Yeah, I've just been amazed, just been blown away. Yeah.
Because we, it's not the first book about, set in a sort of a snowy clime, is it? But actually it's really different. I think that's the thing, is it's, if you think, oh, it's another book set in, it's not, it's so much different than that. And I think that's what makes it that uniqueness, as with all the different things. I think it's great.
I think when I was writing it, I had got no idea, that it would get this much interest at all. I thought I was probably writing a niche book that might be, of interest to people that like snow sports. And I never could have imagined it, but I thought I just wrote what I wanted to write. And that's what they always advise writers to do, write what you want to write. And yeah, maybe that works.
I think that's the thing, isn't it? Is a lot of people, and I've spoken to a lot of other authors about, that sort of difficulty of sort of writing, putting it down. You like you said, you had it in your head for like 20 years and you sort of carried it around, but it's actually about getting it on paper, isn't it? And being able to do that. Do you have a group? Do you meet in a group? I know a lot of authors meet in sort of creative writing groups. Do you have sort of a friend? You said you had a group of friends that who helped you with your sort of revisions.
They're actually all in the UK. So I met them online. There was about 5 or 6 of us. And yeah, we all write different genres actually, but they have been a massive source of help and support. Yeah, so, and then also I've got a few writer friends locally, but I live in such a small beach town. So yeah, really not that many writers here. So most of my writer friends are, all spread out over the world, and then we email now and then. I met some great contacts through the Curtis Brown courses that I did, because again, those writers were just all over the world, and it's so helpful as a writer to be able to network with other writers like that and get beta readers.
Yeah, I think it's I know that a lot of people say that sort of peer support is really important, and it sort of helps because that people will be honest with you, whereas sometimes you don't get that honesty from sort of people who for whatever reason. But whereas if it's somebody that and you're close to, they can go, actually that really doesn't work, or that's great,
Yeah, and I often find like each person has a different aspect that they will sort of look at. One person might more focus on the characters, another person might talk about your dialogue or your subplot, and they can all sort of advise you in different aspects.
Did you have a favourite part of Shiver when you wrote it? Was there a real sort of like tingly moment where you just thought, this is really good?
I guess I was probably happy when the twists sort of came into my mind, and I was like, oh yeah, would this work? Yeah, I think that would work. And there were a few points where my agent or my editors, pushed me for more. When I submitted it to my agent, she liked it, but thought we needed another twist. So I went back to the drawing board, and I didn't know if I could do it, but I came up with a few different ones and I pitched them all to her, and then we found a twist that we both liked. So yeah, I love.
Quite difficult to write the twist. Yeah, is it? You enjoyed writing the twist? Because I think
I did totally.
To try and get because I think for a reader as well, that that's the big thing. I love a twist in a book, and I think if you I like a twist when I don't see it coming as well. I think that's the really clever one, and you sort of think, oh, I really didn't see that coming. And there are a few of those in here without giving anything.
I love thrillers with massive twists. Yeah.
Did you so going back to your sort of snowboarding career and now your complete lifestyle change, so do you miss the snow? Because obviously you don't get a lot of it in Australia, if any.
Yeah, I haven't seen snow for 10 years now. My little kids have never seen snow. It sounds funny for a former snowboarder to say this, but I always hated the cold. I didn't cope well with the cold. At least when I was snowboarding, I was dressed for it. But I went to Canada for a bit, and it was -30. Wow. And I actually got really, really sick. I just couldn't, my body couldn't handle being that cold. No. So when I finished snowboarding, and I went to Australia on holiday and just loved it. And now I absolutely love being somewhere that is really warm. I absolutely love the climate. And I switched from snowboarding to surfing because I'm in my 40s now, and snowboarding, freestyle and snowboarding anyway, is very much a young person's sport, and I would be terrified to go back there and go into a half pipe. Like, yeah, I know that'd be
because the fear is when you're younger, you don't have that fear to do it, or
you break less easily, you know, you're more flexible. And now I've broken a lot from even just from surfing. So yeah, we get to that age where everything starts breaking.
So your snow will stay in your novels rather than you sort of going back to it. You've got no sort of hankering to go back and live in a cold country.
I really want to take my kids because they often ask about it. And yeah, I think they would really, really love it. My niece goes snowboarding or skiing rather in the Snow Dome in Manchester. So I would absolutely love to take my boys there next time that we're allowed to travel internationally.
Yeah, it's difficult, isn't it, with not being able to travel. And if they haven't seen the snow, are they sort of fascinated by it? Because obviously they haven't seen it at all. It must be a really
we went to Brisbane where they do an event called Snow for Kids in the winter, and you pay, I don't know, a lot of money for a ticket, and you get to go in this room with, you know, you get handed a tiny bucket of snow. So they did get to see it, and you get to go sledging on it, but it's the smallest amount of snow that you can imagine, because it was probably, you know, still 15 degrees there in the winter, or 20 degrees.
Yeah, it's like that's like a spring warmish day in the UK. We're not used to that. So when do you think, when will your next book be out? When will
I'm hoping it's out in spring next year if I can get it finally finished. Yeah.
And is that with Headline again?
Yes, it will be. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. That's good. We'll yeah, we look forward to that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah, so I was interested in your sort of background with the snowboarding and the sort of the fear aspect. I really liked that in the book. I used one of your quotes in my blog about the sort of the fear being sort of like a drug. It's like the adrenaline is and is that, you know, so you obviously go into it, because I thought it sounded terrifying and I wouldn't, but I was like, no, I've never been skiing. I really don't like the cold. But yeah, I would be terrified of going up a mountain and sort of doing the things that you do. But is that sort of part of it? Is it?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, some people who do that sport would be a lot less, you know, a lot more fearless than me. I was terrified every single day of my winter seasons, but I would still push myself to do it, you know, to go off these jumps and to take runs in the half pipe. And the sense of, you know, satisfaction that you get from making yourself do it is just amazing. Also, the relief at the bottom of having survived. And I guess you just get used to that level of adrenaline. You'll do one run and then you've got to do it again and again, and you miss it when the season finishes. So yeah, it's really, really addictive. You are just in the moment while you're doing it. Nothing else matters. You're not, you know, worrying about anything else. You're just focused on one thing. So it's almost like a meditative thing. And yeah, it's like no other sport I've ever tried. Surfing comes close, but I don't think it's got quite the adrenaline level of snowboarding.
What did you what was the competition? Were the people as sort of, you know, is it very sort of backstabby and
no, I kind of feel bad about that, actually. In my experience, everybody that I met was absolutely lovely. It was the most friendliest, most supportive group of people, you know, imaginable. And maybe I kind of sense the more dangerous the sport, the more supportive the people are doing it. And also because there's no money in the sport, people are doing it for the passion. So everybody is just, you know, applauding everybody else for pushing the bar. I sense at a higher level, you know, if we're talking Olympics, I'm sure it would be much more competitive. And I sort of more looked at other sports. I got very interested in top athletes in other sports where, you know, you have got a lot more prize money, much more established sports like cycling or boxing, basketball, rugby. And there are just so many stories about mind games and intimidation strategies being used. So I got thinking, you know, what might happen if somebody used those kind of, you know, mind games in an extreme sport? The result could easily be deadly. So
You know,
yeah.
I really like that side of it. I think it sort of, well, it added to the sort of the suspense, didn't it, and the tension to have that sort of, you know, not knowing who is your friend and who you could trust, and yeah, no, it was
I think
great.
athletes are quite ruthless, you know, like we admire top athletes a lot,
Yeah,
but we know that you don't reach the top by being nice.
no.
So they've got this focus and this ruthlessness, basically. So from that point of view, I thought they made really great thriller characters.
They definitely do. And I can't believe we've only got a couple of minutes left. I'm just going to check to see whether we've got any more questions.
Sure.
But it's gone really quickly. And thank you so much. It's been so interesting talking to you. And yeah, we'd love to have you back
Thank you.
when you've written your Sunny book, your Sunny thriller. I'm looking forward to that one. Is it sort of like is it like a bit sort of like the beach sort of thing? Are you gonna, is it?
Yeah, I'm thinking that. Yes.
Yeah, we'll look forward to that, and maybe a little bit of romance as well along the line.
I hope so, very much. Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Ali. It's been great, and good luck, and enjoy the sunshine.
Oh, thank you so much, and enjoy the snow, and good luck to everyone with the lockdown there. And yeah, thanks so much for having me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.